most of the ducks, they vacate DC during the warm months. Really, the two you see here on your screen now, these are the two species that are generally hanging around during breeding season. The mallard, excuse me, which kind of is underrated with that bright green head, and wood ducks. Wood ducks are, I think, if there was a duck rating, or a duck scale, it would probably be towards the top of it, because it's quite the beautiful duck, both the male and the female. And of course, with other waterfowl, you have Canada geese, which are ubiquitous all year round. And then moving on to the next slide, these are some of the ducks you're going to start to see soon. And really that kind of sweet spot for the duck return date, end of this month, early next month. If those of you who have been to Constitution Gardens before or haven't, one, you should go. It's a great place for ducks to get very up close with ducks. And I believe there's a DC Audubon walk there in normal times, at least once a year. One of the board members, help me out here, please.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great place to even take a spouse who isn't into birding like mine, but there it's a great spot for northern shoveler, which are back. Bufflehead will be back soon. Ruddy duck, ringneck duck, and the species up here on the screen. These are the ones that the waterfowl species you're most likely to see in DC. And actually, pied-billed grebe is back. I know at the very least, like McMillan Reservoir, there's already been a few seen there. And then moving on to the next slide, some of the less common but expected species. Up on the screen here, two very beautiful ducks, redhead canvasback. You'll see them each winter in DC in smaller numbers. They're not quite as numerous as they used to be a few decades ago, but they're still around. And some of the other species you're more than likely to see as well. The two teals more kind of on the bookends of the season, start of the winter and end of the winter as it moves in the spring. But the other ones, smaller numbers, during the winter. And then I think it's best place is the sea ducks in DC, probably the slide everyone's waiting for. Constitution Gardens, most all birders are familiar with that. And northern shovelers are there now, but it's a really great spot to go to and get close to gadwall, bufflehead, ringneck duck, American black duck, and more. Haines Point, and pretty much Haines Point and the river down to Jones Point Park, where it hits Wilson Bridge, that's sort of duck central in the winter. And as you can tell by the list of ducks here, it's and waterfowl. If you really want to get a good idea of the type of species, especially the rare ones that end up in DC, that's really the place to get. The places to go: Haines Point, Washington Sailing Arena, Tidelock Park, Jones Point Park. All those areas along the water, really great for seeing these ducks and even coming across some of the rarer ones. And hooded merganser, popular one, but the go-to spot for that species every winter is LBJ Memorial Grove. Anyone have anything else to add with ducks? And actually, Chris has a great point here. Chris, you want to share that good duck exercise?
Sure. So one of the things that I learned early on about ducks and duck identification is, realizing that, ducks are oftentimes very far away. So Andres had mentioned before getting your scope ready. So oftentimes, we can't get as close to the ducks as we would like. So we have to have some things to help us with our identification. And one of the things is just behavioral in terms of how ducks feed. You have some ducks, the mallard would be the perfect example here, that feeds by basically tipping itself, submerging its head in the water with its back end up in the air, feeding basically on underwater vegetation, stuff that is not very deep. These are what are called dabbling ducks. And so, if you're looking at a duck, way off in the distance, and you see it kind of tip itself up that way, that can help you kind of eliminate a bunch of ducks that it isn't going to be, because those ducks don't do that, and reduce it to a set of ducks that it could be, those that do dabble. And then you've got kind of the other feeding pattern, which is divers, ducks that completely submerge themselves, usually diving a bit deeper. Oftentimes these are ducks that are that fish or go after crustaceans deeper down. And so, if you can identify that behavior from a distance, that can really help. So divers versus dabblers. The other thing that I have also read about duck identification that can help, there's I think it's a Cornell lab, one of their kind of plastic fold-out slides that are guides that they have, that talks about looking for the white. Because oftentimes, again, either at distance or in really bad light, looking at where the white feathering is on ducks can help you identify it from a distance, because they can be very, very distinct in terms of their feather plumage patterns. And where you might not be able to identify shades of blue and green or brown, but if you can see white usually at a real far distance, and so learning where kind of the white patches are on different types of ducks can also be really, really helpful when you're doing your identification.
Good. Yeah, great points. And we did have one question. What's a good time of day to look for ducks? And I would say that mornings are generally a good time to look for any bird, but ducks are pretty easy to find most times during the day.